the silent stars go by. How still we see thee lie above thy deep and dreamless sleep. The silent stars go by, yet in thy dark street shineth the everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. For Christ is born of Mary and gathered all above. While mortals sleep, the angels keep their watch of wandering love. Oh, morning stars together proclaim the holy birth, and praises sing to God the King, and peace to men on earth. How silently the wondrous gift is given. So God imparts to human hearts the blessings of his heaven. No ear may hear his coming, but in this world of sin, where meek souls will receive him still, the dear Christ enters in. Oh, holy child of Bethlehem, descend to us, we pray. Cast out our sin and enter in. Be born in us today. We hear the Christmas angels, the great glad tidings tell. Oh, come to us, abide with us, our Lord Emmanuel. Town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie above thy deep and dreamless sleep. The silent stars go by, yet in thy dark street shineth the everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. For Christ is born of Mary and gathered all above. While mortals sleep, the angels keep their watch silently the wondrous gift is given. So God imparts to human hearts the blessings of his heaven. No ear may hear his coming, but in this world of sin, where meek souls will receive him still, the dear Christ enters in. Oh, holy child of Bethlehem, descend to us, we pray. Cast out our sin and enter in. Be born in us today. We hear the Christmas angels, the great glad tidings tell. Oh, come to us, abide with us, our Lord Emmanuel.
Are we live yet? Okay. Not anymore. Jim did. The Lord be with you. And Merry Christmas to everyone. We're going to get started by singing, so thank you all for being here. I want to remind everybody that it is our normal practice to wear masks. If you're sitting with your family and you're away from everybody else, feel free to take your mask off at the table. But when we're singing or when we're doing all that kind of stuff, and especially if you're walking around, try to keep those masks on just so everybody doesn't get Omicron. Right? All right, we're going to sing. This is a song called The Canticle of the Turning, and it's been our weekly Advent song for the last couple of weeks, and we decided that we were going to keep singing this song every week and increase the number of verses we sing and increase the loudness and speed with which we sing it up until Christmas. So here we are on the eve of Christmas, and we're going to be singing the Canticle of the Turning, where we basically join with Mary, who sang that we want to see those who have too much brought low and those who have too little brought up. So let's sing together the Canticle of the Turning. Cries out with a joyful shout that the God of my heart is great, and my spirit sings of the wondrous things that you bring to the one who waits. You fixed your sight on your servant's plot, and my weakness you did not spurn. So from east to west shall my name be blessed, will the world be about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. Though I am small, my God, my all, you work great things in me. And your mercy will last from the depths of the past to the end of the age to be. Your very name puts the proud to shame, and to those who would for you yearn. You will show your might, put the strong to flight, for the world is about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. From the halls of power to the fortress tower, not a stroke will be left on stone. Let the king beware, for your justice tears every tyrant from his throne. The hungry poor shall weep no more, for the food they could never earn. There are tables spread, every mouth be fed, for the world is about to turn. My heart shall sing for the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. Though the nations rage from age to age, we remember who holds us fast. God's mercy must deliver us from the conqueror's crushing grasp. This saving word that our forebears heard is the promise which holds us fast. Till spear and rod can be crushed by God, who is turning the world around. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. All right, that's about as loud as it's going to get tonight. We have these little pieces of paper. I don't know if you got one on the way in. On one side, they have a word that says hopes, and on the other side, they say fears. So raise your hand if you did get one of those. All right. If you did get one of those, yeah. And if you didn't get one of those, raise your hand, and the servant who walks will be bringing those around. And if you have a pen, then I will instruct you on what to do. There's a song that we're going to sing here in just a bit, "O Little Town of Bethlehem," and there's a a line in it that says, "The hopes and the fears of all the years are met in you tonight." There's a lot of context that I could talk about that, but raise your hand if you didn't get one of those. Mark's going to bring them around. But essentially, I think that the hopes and fears aspect of it echoes what the earliest church did whenever they met together. They would come together and they would share their wanderings, is what they called them. And the wanderings could be where they've gone, but it also could be where they've strayed. And the hopes and the fears aspect, especially in midwinter, as we'll talk about here in a bit, always represented what people feared, what people were afraid of that was going to happen, but also what they really wanted and what they could imagine would happen. So this is something that's been pretty meaningful for us over the last couple of years, is that when we get together on Christmas Eve, we write our hopes down and we write our fears down. This is all anonymous, don't put your name on it or anything like that, but we're going to collect them all, and then at the end of the service, we're going to read those. And what we find is that it really binds us together. It helps us to know what everybody's going through, what everybody wants to see, where everybody's imagination is going, and where everybody is, the darkness that's also sitting with everybody. So go ahead and take just a few minutes and start filling those out. Even if you don't, even if you need a couple more minutes, that's okay, because there's going to be a little bit more time. So just take maybe 2 or 3 minutes, fill those out, and then we'll resume our service here in a minute. On Christmas Eve, we light candles. So I'm going to light the candles today. I never get to light candles. On Christmas Eve, we light candles because, well, I don't want to spoil it. There's a reason we light candles. Anybody want to guess? No? Good. It'll be too big of a reveal. But for now, we're going to light this candle of joy, despite all of our sadness. We're going to light a candle of hope, where despair keeps watch. We're going to light a candle of joy. We're going to light a candle of peace for all those tempest-tossed days. We're going to light a candle of love to inspire all the living. And we could light other candles too, candles of grace to ease heavy burdens, or candles of courage because there's a lot to be afraid of. But these four are what we have, and then this candle of Christ in the middle, which binds them all together. So may our faith bind us all together, and may these candles, although they are temporary and they will soon burn out, may they represent the stuff that's going to burn all year in our hearts. Amen. Let's see. Let's sing one more song. In a minute, actually, can I get 2 elders to go and collect those hopes and fears? If that wouldn't, during this song. No basket? One in the back would be fine. Little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie above the dark and dreamless sleep. The silent stars go by, yet in thy dark streets shineth the everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. How silently the wondrous gift is given. So God imparts to human heart the blessings of the heavens. No ear may hear his coming, whatever land they're in, where meek souls will receive him still, the dear Christ enters in. I have a confession to make, at least a small one. When I was very young, Christmas was all about one thing. What was it? It was about the gifts. And when you are young, the amount of gifts that we sometimes can get in this world, it can be so overwhelming, but also so delightful that it can create an overabundance of anticipation and joy for that particular day, right? So everything else in that whole time of the year seems so much more bright and so much more magical because you know that when it comes to an end, you will be getting one toy that you want, 1 billion toys. You will be opening toys for the next 14 days. However it happens, there is something magical when you were a child about getting everything that you want one time a year. And then you grow older, and your parents probably realize this at some point, that it is unsustainable to keep getting you everything that you want every year, because what you wanted when you were 2 and 3 and 5 and 7 are not the same things as what you want as teenagers. So what you want becomes a little bit more measured. And then eventually you decide, if I were to ask my parents for everything I wanted, I would bankrupt them. So you learn, hopefully, to moderate yourself so that you don't make your parents feel bad. But there's this weird thing that happens. I don't know if it happened for you or not. This weird thing that happens is when you are used to getting lots of stuff and everything being amazing and perfect, and then all of a sudden one year it's not, like what does that do to you? It kind of makes you sad. And your parents see you being sad, and that makes them sad. It's this cascade of sadness. Right? So you start to, it's part of being an adult, I suppose, start to transition away from Christmas being so focused on stuff, which I guess is good, right? If you were like me, the transition accompanied a sort of religious zeal. And I thought to myself, this capitalism stuff is ruining everything. Materialism, it didn't used to be like this. Christmas used to mean something. And so I went through this time where I was like really just, we're gonna celebrate Christmas right, and we're not gonna do this, and we're gonna do this right. And what I realized at that point was I was making everybody else around me unhappy. There was very little to be gained by sort of being a humbug about it and trying to force religious fervor where everyone else is just excited to drink eggnog and put up trees and stuff like that. So I sort of just threw my hands up and I went, I don't know what I'm even doing anymore. Like, I guess we'll just do whatever makes everybody happy. Now, that to me felt like giving up. It felt like I didn't know how to convince everybody else of the rightness of what I was doing. I was making everybody upset, so fine, I give up, do Christmas, whatever, you capitalist swine, right? Do materialist Christmas all you want to. And I realized that for 1 year I was just unhappy and everybody saw me being unhappy, but they ignored me and carried on. But the next year I was like, what's the most loving thing I can do here? And I was like, what if I just help put stuff on the tree this year? And something changed in me. My Grinch heart switched gears. And I don't know why. And I certainly don't think that the way we celebrate Christmas is any more particularly religious or any more right or any more ethically correct than at any other time I've done it in my life. But there just comes a period in time when the celebration itself, the turning, the season, the time, and the family, and the good things about it are just worth more than any of your dumb ethics or any of your dumb theology or any of the other things that you could, make people feel guilty about. So that's what I want to talk about just a little bit. In almost every area, every continent in the world, civilizations have had a midwinter festival. Why do you think that is? I mean, if you want to shout it out, go ahead, but it's a rhetorical question, right? There's this sort of anti-religious or anti-Christian thing that goes around every year around this time where it says Christmas was just a ripoff of all of these other Roman celebrations and whatnot, and that's not true. I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons why it's not true, but here's the other thing. It kind of is true. Every single place you go on the planet has midwinter festivals. But that doesn't mean that they copied each other. But also, Christianity has been dragging itself through all times and all these places, and guess what? It picks up some stuff along the way. But that didn't happen until the 4th or 5th century. For 4 centuries, Christianity was sort of in this Mediterranean place. And in the Mediterranean, do you ever wonder if the sun's going to come out? No, that's one of the things you have plenty of, right? Sun, that's a big deal. The Romans loved the sun, but not once did they ever think, oh no, what if the sun doesn't come out? You know who did think about that? The Celts. When stuff got real in midwinter, when you haven't seen the sun in a long time, and you start to think to yourself, what if it never comes back? Because they had something that we don't have. They may have not been scientifically correct, but people back then had a connection to the land and to nature that we don't have. And they really felt that if they didn't do something or participate in something, then maybe the sun wouldn't ever come back. And those people, they needed the sun. Have you ever been in Northern Europe during winter? It's cold, and the sun just gets blotted out for weeks at a time. It's just white, and everything's gone. And when the sun comes out after, what the solstice is, right? The solstice is when there is more darkness than light during a day, right? So the winter solstice, it's dark all the time. And when it's light, all you see is snow. And it's just, where's the sun, right? So they began to do these festivals when the light became, at the very least, they call it the darkest day, right? Darkest day comes, and you think to yourself, this is it. So far so good, but what if the sun doesn't come back? So you begin to believe, because your parents told you and their parents told you, that if you don't do the rituals right, then maybe the sun won't come back. So the Christians are taking their religion and they're moving up into these places where the Celts are, and the Celts are like, we don't need your dumb religion. We're doing just fine. The Christians were having a heck of a time trying to find a common place of interest. And so Christians do a lot more talking sometimes than listening. Would you agree? Would you have found this to be true? I have. And at a certain point, though, they thought, what if we just listen more? So they listened. What's important to you? And one of the big things, one of the most important things, was the Midwinter Festival, right? The Yule, right? The time when things were the darkest, but they reached out, and through their participation, the sun was reborn every year. And the Christians said, oh, we've got something like that. We've got something where when we were at our darkest, all of a sudden something was born and it transformed everything around it. Hey, that's a touch point. So they found a way in. And at the time, now here's my grumpiness, right? I dislike Christmas trees. That is, I used to. And so I would just fold my hands, Christmas tree comes up, and that's just pagan, right? But then, here's how my mind works. I keep reading, and sometimes the things that I thought I knew were not the things that were right. So here's what I discovered. This will blow your mind. I discovered that the original Christmas trees weren't actually Christmas trees. You didn't bring them in the house. The Celts would find a tree, like a big tree, and that's what they would build their villages around. And during the midwinter, they would gather around the tree, right? It was an oak tree, apropos of nothing. It was an oak tree because oak trees attracted more lightning than anything else. And so when the lightning hit the tree, they would collect the fiery branches, and that became like a symbol for them of, anyway, don't worry about it. But they would take this oak tree that's in the middle of their village, and they would decorate it with apples and oranges and pears. And this became the place where their community gathered around. It became a communal thing. It became a joyful thing. And the Christians, when they came and they saw this, they didn't have the same reaction that you would expect. They didn't go, oh my gosh, that's pagan. They thought, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. It reminds us of that thing that we have, that story of Eden, where things were gathered around a tree and things were harmonious and there was fruit and there was life and there was community, and it was lost. And this is a beautiful thing because it reminds us of that. So they found another touch point in. And over time, the Celts, a lot of them accepted Christianity, right? There was a lot of folks who believed, there were a lot of people who didn't. But there's another thing that I thought was really, really neat. And I'm not going anywhere with this. If you think I have a giant point, I don't. There's just a couple of neat things to reflect on. There is a practice that they used to do where on the 26th, you know what that's called? In some places they call it, there's a day, it's called what? Boxing Day on the 26th, right? The day after Christmas. On the 26th, the day after, actually it was the day after the solstice, but for reasons that I don't want to go into, it's related. The boys, the men and the boys, would go out because they needed to learn something that the women already knew. And the fathers would teach the men that blood is connected to life. So they would go out and they would hunt for a wren. That's a particular kind of bird. And they would hunt it and then they would kill it. And then they would spill its blood on the ground as participation in helping the soil and the ground to be reborn. And of course the Christians, they weren't super excited about killing birds and spilling blood everywhere. That just didn't quite mesh with them. But what they did see was the beauty that was actually going on behind it, right? Because Christianity does know a couple of things, right? That blood and sacrifice are actually quite important to rebirth and to being born, right? You could talk about Jesus, but more importantly, you could talk about the way people are born, right? It's messy, and it's sometimes bloody, and it gives new life. And then guess what? The sacrifice isn't over, right, parents? right? It's not over. Like, the sacrifice continues. And so blood and sacrifice, yeah, we get it. We might not want to kill birds, but we get that. How can we connect it, they said? Well, there's a story in the scripture about Stephen, a guy named Stephen. He was the first martyr of the church, and his blood inspired a bunch of people, right? He gave his life for what he believed in. So December 26th, the day after the festival, became the Feast of St. Stephen, in which the men and the boys, instead of going out and killing a wren and spilling the blood, they would instead go out and they would collect food, and they would collect clothing, and they would put them in boxes, and they would take them to the poor and the shut-ins. This is where the gift giving comes from. It's not some weird, you can tie it to St. Nicholas however you want to, but the gift giving, right, to the poor especially, was the Feast of St. Stephen. Because you know that sacrifice and shedding of blood and the giving up of something that is yours, not shedding the blood of other people, but your blood, sweat, and tears, is sometimes the only thing that can make the world better. So, like I said, I don't really have a huge point. But at best, I think that our faith, and whatever midwinter thing we celebrate, right? Traditionally, this may not make you happy, but traditionally, in a lot of cultures, the most revolts happen around midwinter. Do you know why? Because in almost every culture, there's this weird thing that happens. Norms are flipped upside down. If you've got a hierarchical culture, midwinter is often the time when the hierarchy goes away, and just for a day you have weird stuff like the May Festival, or the May Queen, or King for a Day, or this weird stuff where it gets flipped, right? And you get to have things not be as they are. And guess what happens when people who are unhappy get a taste of how things can be? They don't want to go back, right? So midwinter is just one of those times a year where traditionally these things happen. They don't know why, but there's something different. There's something in the air when the darkest night of the year is followed by what? The rebirth of the sun. When light, after the darkest night, the light starts getting brighter and brighter and brighter every single day. Does that tell you something about life in general? Right? It's not just in nature that this happens, but you sometimes think that, man, I'm going through this time and it's overwhelming me and it's awful. That's not the time when you lose hope. That's the time when you actually begin to find it. That's the time when you actually realize what hope is and how important it is to you. Sometimes your light is defined by the darkness that you've gone through. So no matter what you celebrate, and now I'm on team I don't care. Now I'm on team, if this is meaningful for you, let's do that. Let me participate. Let's be happy together, whether it's this or whether it's that. Because guess what? That's the way the world has been going for thousands and thousands and thousands of years in every culture. And faith, at its best, is not about replacing cultures or practices. It's about saying yes and to the beliefs and the cultures and the practices it encounters. It affects and is affected by the truest things that it finds, no matter where it finds them. And for us, at the deepest and darkest parts of life, pulling inward and grabbing and holding on is not what's going to get us the light again. It's the giving and the helping and the seeking that pulls us out of the deepest, darkest night and lets the light back in. Amen? Are these does anybody else have any hopes and fears that they haven't read or they haven't written down? Mark, would you collect those? Thomas is going to collect them. Perfect. That's good. Thank you.
the time that Jesus was born, there were a lot of people who were afraid of what Jesus would mean for them, and they were right. And there was a lot of people who had hopes for what Jesus would mean, and they were right. And there were a lot of people who were afraid that Jesus would be bad for them. Jesus turned out to be really good. And there were a lot of people who hoped Jesus would be good for them, and Jesus turned out not to be so good for them. So you never can tell. So we're going to read our hopes and our fears, not because we think that Jesus is going to come get us, but because this is going to help us understand who we are as a community. Hopes first or fears first? You've learned the lesson, right? Fears first, then hopes. Never the other way around. Darkest night first, and then the light. So here we go. I fear that I won't feel rested, and I'll become overwhelmed. I fear that my mental health will suffer. Fear that we really don't need a repeat of 2020 or 2021. Fear of COVID-19 short term and climate warming in the long term. Fear that their life will fall apart, that their son won't want to be with them anymore, that their dad will die and they'll be left alone. Fear of losing one of the dogs that they cherish. They need help but are fearful of asking. Fear of moving towards things that may not be as good as hoping. Fear that the world may always be longing for equality and justice, I suppose, instead of actually having it. Fears of the end of the world, fears for Afghanistan invading the U.S., fearing a death in the family. Fear of their own death or living through the loss of more family members. Fears of Satan, of losing friends and family, too much hand sanitizer, or fear of dying. Fear of falling off of a mansion. Fear of falling off a big elephant. Fear of our family remaining healthy. Oh no, that's wrong. Nope. Fear of variants of COVID will continue to surface. Fear that COVID-19 is going to be a lot more time of waiting. Also, I should say that if you are watching online, we do have that form in that was posted, so we'll be checking those as well, and Rachel's going to run those up if you have them. Fears of global warming and COVID. Fears of trusting in God, so they don't have any. Oh wait, no, they're trusting in God, so they don't have any fears to write down. Good for you. Fears of continued pandemic and sickness and death and more divisions in our country. Extreme turbulence may cause the destruction of our country and our lives. Fear that fears that Peter will always be taller than me. Fear that our nation will never realize the hurt that we're causing. Fear that the ways that we're raised and continue to act hurt members of our community, even if we don't mean it. Fear for World War III and for robots taking over the world. That's legit. Fears that discrimination overtakes me and I become someone that discriminates, and that Trump will be president again, and that can't read that, something with power again. Fears that any of our nearest and dearest family and friends experience major health issues or death, that my business collapses, that alone time will never happen. Fears that anxiety will worsen, fears that school and work will go downhill, that grades will be bad. Fears for continued chaos, for pandemic chaos continuing, for mental health crisis. Fear that I will fail, not live up to my family's expectations. Rachel, do we have the online ones, if there are any?
There is one more I need to fill out, but I filled out one already.
Oh, you put them on. Oh, you're transferring them manually. Look at you. If this is your first time at Westside, it's like this all the time. We don't do things nice and polished. It's always like family. A little bit messy, a lot of fun. We don't try to take things too seriously. Am I waiting, Rachel, or moving on?
Please wait.
Okay. This is us waiting, which is fine. You're familiar with the slow food movement, right? This is the slow service movement. Long, awkward periods where nothing is happening, where we just exist together, and that's okay. I didn't write down my fears because I was busy doing stuff, but I sometimes am afraid for the church and for the lives of the people here. I'm afraid that, sometimes what we're doing, what we're trying to do won't make any difference, right? Does anybody else feel like that? That like you're just spinning wheels and what have you actually done, right? I have hopes too. We'll get to those. It's not all bad. Afraid that the sun won't come up tomorrow unless we spill some blood. Just kidding, that was a joke. I realize in this cultural climate, that's not actually that funny. And then one more fear, that we do nothing to improve things. Now, for the hopes. This is where it gets good. You ready for some light? Yes! I like it. A hope that I can start to feel like I'm getting ahead and not falling behind, that my kids continue to grow into amazing humans. Hope for better mental health and relief from COVID and better access to vaccines, and really want to get better at math. Yeah, you can get better at math. You're gonna. This is your year. Hopes that they become we. That's a good one. Yeah. Hopes that we'll be able to become more balanced in my mind and my body and spirit, be more connected to God, stay out of the hospital. Amen. Hope that I can accept that I can be strong no matter what happens. I hope to be open to change. I hope to always have love and support from my friends and my family, and to be able to give equally in return. I hope that I hope that I have a growing collection of upcoming games and films and cool presents. Good for you. I hope that for you too. Hope that this year is better than the past year, that I may enjoy simple moments in my life and prioritize people over accomplishments. I hope that everyone lives long and does good and has a good life, and that my mom is okay. I hope I get a hoverboard. These kids out here living their best lives, or these adults who just never grew up. Whoever you are, I love it. I hope that my family stays safe, for our family to remain healthy, for our family to draw closer together, that we care for each other more, and that we have a closer relationship with God. For better mental health care in the state of Texas, and an end to COVID. I hope COVID will end soon, and I hope everyone will have a good Christmas. I hope for a happy, healthy 2022 full of love, family, friendship, and adventure. Yeah! Adventure! Nobody ever hopes for adventure. Good for you. That God's kingdom expands. Hope for peace on earth, for care for the earth, for loving one another, and a strong church community. That our strong church community continues. I hope to be the better twin. that the world could at least make an effort to do what's right. And I hope that as a community we do everything that we can for the people that we can, so that may not have as much. Hope that the world cools down and that people don't be stupid, and that COVID finally calms down. Hope that COVID finally leaves soon, that all forms of discrimination will die down and stop. I hope that my job gets better. I hope for more time with family, for work to go well. I hope for health for friends and family, for COVID to get less and less for the ones still struggling with health issues, that they'll see improvement. Hope for small businesses to do well. I hope that my family is able to receive the help and healing that we need. I hope that life continues to move closer to pre-COVID life, but with the lessons that we've retained and the appreciations that we've gained. I hope that I will hope for family and social anxiety to get better, hope for getting closer with friends, getting caught up with school, that the things that are causing stress to calm down, for finding calming activities to use as a way to cope with stress. Hope for continued good health and healing for those who are apart from family. For peace for those of us who are having Christmas without a loved one, and that I figure out who I am. And I hope to be able to live up to what I am and what I know I'm capable of. And finally, I hope that we are able to come together and work to improve our lives and our fellow humans and our country and our world. That's a lot, huh? Do you get a sense that in some ways we are all struggling with the same things, we all want the same things, and also there's some stuff in there that you didn't see coming, right? I mean, I feel like the person who gets the hoverboard and the person who's afraid of falling off the mansion need to be put into contact with each other, but now that you, I'm sorry. But now you get a sense for who we are, right? You get a sense for who you are. We know each other a bit more now. And now that we've spent some midwinter time together, this is our ritual, right? This is what we do to close the gate on the darkest night and to start looking for the light that comes next. Because it's all uphill from here. We're going to have some struggles, but every single day that we open ourselves up to the light, and every single day that we stretch out our hands to help, we're not only finding light, but we're doing what? We're bringing it to people. That's why we exist. That's the only reason that faith and church and Christianity exist at all. The only reason why we gather here in a place like this is to do good for other people. If we don't do that, then it's all just us celebrating the dark together and being afraid all the time. And that's no way to live. That's celebrating death. And we refuse to do that. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right, let's celebrate communion one more time before Christmas. If I'm going to come around and pass out the bread. If you don't want any bread, that's okay. You just need to make some sort of dramatic hand motion that says you don't want any, like this. No! Right? or not today! Or whatever you want to say is fine. By the way, I know the adults are like fed up with my nonsense, but the kids love this stuff. So just, right? So just say you don't want any. If you do want some, one hand means you want a little. Two hands means you want as much as I can give you. All right, so that's what we're going to do. If I can get an elder to walk behind me and to hand out the cup. For those of you who are first-timers here, the cups are separated by colors. The white juice is non-alcoholic. The red is wine. So please keep that in mind. Yes, sir. Do we have a question? Yeah.
The person who said that the word.
Oh, that's okay. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. But as far as I'm concerned, everybody wants a hoverboard. That would be.
I have two of them.
Let me. Overabundance of caution. The bread of life for everybody at home. Maybe you have some cookies or something that you're eating. Eggnog instead of wine. I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, I hope you're having fun. Bread of life for all who hunger, cup of compassion for the broken world. And now, we come to the part. No, I said that. No rules on Christmas Eve. Do it however you want. You can always go back to the well. So now we're going to symbolize taking the light out into the darkness, and I'm going to take this, I'm going to share it with somebody, that person's going to share it with somebody, everybody gets to share until we're all lit up. Then we're going to sing Silent Night. We're going to sing Silent Night 3 times, and sometime during that 3 times of singing Silent Night, y'all are just going to get up and leave. I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm not going to end the service. We're just going to turn the lights down. We're going to sing, and you have 3 three times through Silent Night to get up and get out of here and go where you're going to be from. Yes?
Are we allowed to talk in the foyer?
Traditionally, no. Traditionally, leave the church so that your voices don't reverberate back. It kills the mood. Okay. So here we go. There shouldn't be people walking all around the room. Just, sort of stay where you're at. Do a little bit at a time. Thanks, Mike. There you go. One table at a time is fine. You can stand if you want to, but wait until everybody gets their candle lit. For those of you who have at home, if you want to get your phone out, light a candle, or light up your lighter, I don't know. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender